Hey, thanks for joining me today for the Faith Film Fan Podcast, your one-stop shop for anything that has to do with faith and film and fans and all those things together. Today we are talking about, okay, hold on to your horses because we're talking about an amazing film. It's called Sound of Hope, The Story of Possum Trot. Now, I have never said this on this podcast ever. You need to see this movie. Don't think about, oh, should we go buy a ticket this, what should we do on July 4th? What should we be doing? Just take my word, go buy a ticket. This is the most powerful Christian film probably since the Jesus Revolution. And that was the most powerful Christian film since the Passion of the Christ. So, I mean, this is so well done. It's stunning. It's so good. The directing is amazing. The acting is amazing, but the story, everything about this is so well done, but man, is it life-changing. And you want to talk about Christ-centric. A lot of times we have faith films on here. Sorry, Rebecca, we are going to get to you. I'm just going to say nice things about your film, and then we're going to introduce you. But so many faith films, quote unquote, faith has like big quotation marks around it. And you don't know what the faith is in, but this thing is so Christ-centric. This thing has such a powerful message. And boy, you want to talk about getting you off your seat and getting excited. Fantastic. Go see this film, Sound of Hope, The Story of Possum Trot. And today I have the writer, the producer, her husband directed it. These guys made this thing. It's been a labor of love for years for them. Rebekah Weigel, am I saying Weigel right?
Yes, good job.
Just like the gas stations in Knoxville, Tennessee. They have Weigel stores there.
Great.
But Rebekah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the kind words. I appreciate it, especially coming from a fellow filmmaker. That means a lot.
This thing is made so well. I mean, the acting is amazing. Usually when you have kid actors, they tend to overact a little bit, and everything's just a little too hyped up. And the children in this is all your husband Joshua directing this thing. The direction was just outstanding. The acting is so good. The cinematography is amazing. The lighting, the script was out of this world. I mean, you guys did such a great job. So, man, I don't even know where to begin. What a great, great movie. In case you haven't picked up, guys, you need to go see this movie. Go buy a ticket to see Sound of Hope. I can't recommend it high enough. So, Rebekah, okay, so there's the big ad. The ad's done. Now we're going to talk about your film.
Thank you.
I just had to get that out because I haven't been this excited about a film in so long. I mean, this is the exact kind, when I think about what a Christian film, a faith film should be, this is it. This is like
Wow.
This is it. This is what a faith film needs to look like. This is how
we should talk about that then, because the faith industry rejected this and did not want to make this because it didn't fit the typical mold. So,
oh man,
it's interesting you feel that way, because that's how we feel too. Is I think there's so much more complexity with faith and our walk with Jesus than sometimes we see on screen. The highs and the lows and the just taking on hard things and what that looks like. And it's messy at times. So.
Oh, you did it beautifully. Okay, let's talk about this. For those who don't know what this film is about, they're just hearing me rave on and on about it. Let's talk a little bit about what the film is. Tell me a little bit about the story and how you found the story. But let's just start off with just what's the film about.
Yeah, the film's about this. It's a true story about this small community in deep East Texas, and started with First Lady Donna Martin. She's a pastor's wife. Her mom passed away. She was grieving. And during that time, the Lord spoke to her and told her to give back and to foster and adopt. And so she convinced her husband, and then they convinced the church, and their whole little community stepped in to this call to care for difficult children, and they took on some of the most difficult to place children in the Texas child welfare system, and in the end they adopted 77 of some of the hardest to place kids.
What an amazing story. It's a true story, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's a true story. And they felt compelled by God because of their faith to do this, and their story has become an example to the whole world.
And it was seriously, so exciting to see here we are, this poor church in rural East Texas, African American church, small church, and you look at the impact they had. And I got to tell you, it was exciting, encouraging, convicting, all those things. But what was so beautiful about this film, Rebekah, in your script, in the way you wrote this, was you didn't just candy coat everything and make it all, we adopted these kids and everything's great. You showed what love, real love, sacrificial love looks like. And
Mhm.
you portrayed it so beautifully. And we see, it says in James that pure and undefiled religion is this, to take care of the orphans and the widows. And you showed what pure and undefiled religion looks like. You put it,
Mhm.
you put it on a screen. This is what it looks like. What an amazing job. Talk to me about the process of getting this story, this amazing story of this church who decided to take on the foster care system and fix it, fix the
Yeah.
problem. Talk about how you came upon the story and what led you to make the film.
Well, we adopted two of our children. So we have five kids, and we adopted a sibling set back in 2013. And so that kind of started our, really broke our heart for this issue and for kids that are in the foster system. And really, to be honest, it came out of some deep pain that we were going through ourselves, where it was hard and we were, our life was turned upside down for a season, similar to what you see in the film. And just, coping with the kids, they had a lot of trauma, and it's a big adjustment for any family that steps in. And our church at the time, there wasn't a lot of other families that were fostering or adopting, and they didn't really know how to support us. I mean, all they knew to do was like clap and tell us we were amazing, but that's not really what you need when you're stepping in. You really need people in the battle with you and in the trenches. And so when I came across this story, I was actually working with churches in Los Angeles to try to get more churches involved in recruiting other foster adoptive parents. And I came across this story, and it moved me so deeply, especially how they did it together. It was like we were doing it alone without a lot of support and help. And then coming across this story where this whole church stepped in together and helped each other and came alongside each other. I think that's really what drew me to the story, because I think church should be like that. We're supposed to be family. We should be in battle together. And I just thought it was such a beautiful picture of the body of Christ and the way that we're called to live. And so I went to Josh. We were actually working on another project called the Butterfly Circus that we've been developing into a full-length feature for a number of years. And we had a lot of traction on that project. So to start over, I mean, as you know, as a filmmaker, and have to develop the whole story and write it, and they didn't have any money to pay us, so it was on spec. So that was another like, okay, how are we going to do this? But we just really felt like God was saying, this is an issue that's on my heart right now, and I really want you to focus on the kids. So we put our other project on the shelf for a season, and we just said, we're going to focus on fighting for kids and developing this story.
How long has this been going on? I mean, when did that start? Okay, we're going to start developing this story. When did that start, and how long has it been since then?
It's been an 8-year journey. So we started in 2016, and as a filmmaker, I mean, can figuring out how to tell this story was tough. I mean, a number of people, Sony Firm had the rights for a number of years with Focus on the Family, and others have, tried, but 22 families, 77 kids, like how do you tell that story? And so it wasn't an easy one to figure out the best way to tell. And because there's all kinds of side stories of this family, and actually this couple passed away, and then 5 kids went over here. And, there's a lot of stories within that we had to kind of like go, no, here's the through line. We're going to focus on the Martins and this Terry character. So it took a number of years, and it took a number of years to find the support, because it is a more gritty film for a film that's about faith. As you know, there's some elements that we show some of the trauma these kids are going through. We show the difficulty of adopting these kids. We didn't want to sugarcoat it, because as foster adoptive parents, we know how hard it is to foster adopt and to bring in kids. And the last thing we wanted to do was just make it look really easy and have a bunch of people jump in and then give up, or, just be disillusioned. And so we thought We've got to show how difficult it is, but still leave people in a hopeful place where they want to do it. And that wasn't easy. Um, but I think it accomplished it, but it just took a number of years.
The script was a work of art. I'm sorry. It's just a work of art. This whole film's a work of
Thank
art.
you.
It's so stunningly good. I mean, I'm just, when I saw it, I was just, I told my wife, we watched it together. I said, I'm stunned. I'm
Oh,
stunned. This is stunningly good.
hmm.
Um, has Joshua done a lot of directing before?
Um, well, he's worked in the industry for a number of years on sets. You know, he did production design and art directing and was on sets for a number of years. And then we started making short films. And did you ever watch The Butterfly Circus?
I have not. I've not seen that.
Okay.
Mm-mm. I want to
Yeah,
see it though.
we made a short film called The Butterfly Circus that ended up going viral, and we won a lot of film festivals and things, and it's had about 100 million views. So that was the last project that we did. We actually always had a full feature in mind for that, but it's a big story and it's a big film. And so as a first-time director, we were having trouble having, convincing people that we need to have creative control, because for us, we want to impact culture with our stories. We're not just interested in making films. He's had a number of offers after the Butterfly Circus to make faith-based films and has turned them down because we actually don't feel called to make faith-based films. We feel called to make films that impact culture. And a lot of times the faith-based films stay in the faith market and they don't go outside of that market. And we see Hollywood's films reaching the ends of the earth and going into other, and
Yeah.
and a lot of the faith-based films are getting better for sure. And they're going, they're starting to, I don't know if they're going international. I mean, I know the Passion of the Christ, massive international audience, actually did better internationally. So, we haven't quite we definitely don't fit into the Hollywood, because they don't typically make films like this that really highlight faith and show faith in a positive way. But, we want to show the redemption through the stories, and sometimes in the faith, genre, you're limited there as well.
What was so good about it was that it wasn't forced, but it's one of the most Christian films I've seen in a long time. I mean, it is
Right.
so you talk about seeing the gospel portrayed with hands. Here's what the gospel looks like. Here's what loving other people. I mean, with the love of Christ. I mean, you're not sugarcoating. This is about Jesus. Jesus is the God we're praying to. He's the one who's doing the healing. He's the one doing the work. And I mean, it was great. Just the way he put it together, the writing on it was fantastic. And so, as I said, this is the kind of Christian film we need to be having. Um, so you mentioned your own adoption. You adopted two, and so you knew some of the pain of what that was like, some of the
Yeah.
hardship in adoption. Can you talk about what things in the film came directly right out of your own life?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, honestly. And a lot of foster adoptive parents that are watching the film are like, were you in my closet listening? Because I think there's a lot of things that as foster adoptive parents that we all kind of struggle with, especially if you're adopting older children that have more trauma. And but yeah, I mean, we adopted when we adopted our daughter, she's only a month apart from our biological daughter. So a lot of the sibling kind of rivalry that you see in the film, like we've experienced that as well. And just, I think God's calling his church into the hard places. Personally, that's one of the goals of this film, was really to call the church into caring for the vulnerable. And it's messy. It isn't clean. It isn't, but that's, I believe, where he meets us in really powerful ways is when we step out in faith and obedience and do things that he's called us to do clearly in scripture. I mean, we're called to, true religions, to care for the orphan and widow, and to defend the fatherless, and, care for the vulnerable. I mean, it's throughout all of scripture we're called to do this, but it means sacrificing our comfort. It means giving up some of our life. But he says if we give up our life, we'll find it. So, we stay back a lot of times, and we did this for a long time. I mean, we kept thinking once we make it in Hollywood, then we'll adopt kids. And, once we have a bigger house, or once I can hire someone to help me. I mean, those were the thoughts for a long time that we had. And it was God calling us out of that place and saying, I have more for you and you need to trust me. And it doesn't seem like the right time right now, but I want you to trust me. And if we wouldn't have, we wouldn't be here making our first film. So it's interesting, like what was holding us back from fostering and adopting was, once we make it, we'll adopt and foster, we'll obey you, God. And he was like, no, like, I want you to obey me now and just trust that I have a plan. And so, because when he called our family into fostering and adopting, it really didn't seem like the right time. I mean, we didn't have steady income. It was like really scary. But his plans are always better than ours.
You can see his hand all over this film. I mean, you can just see this is a God thing. And
Mm,
I mean, I've been around a few times. I've seen quite a few Christian films, and this is a God thing. This film's a God
mm,
thing. I heard that you had said that you're not really looking for so much of a film release as more of a movement, to
yeah.
create a movement. And this is going to wake up the church, the American church, and say, hey, we've got hurting kids in the foster care system. Now, you want to talk about the best way to make disciples? I love how you showed at the end, you showed here's where they are now. Their
Hmm.
beautiful families and how good they're doing. And it's like the best way to make disciples is go get foster kids and love them and put them in your home and show them what Jesus looks like. And even in
Yeah.
those hard moments, show them Jesus. That's how you make disciples. And that's the Great Commission. And so this is, I think, there are going to be kids who are going to be taken in because of this film. This film is going to change people's lives. They're going to say, we need to do this. And I'm just encouraging everyone, man, tell everybody, you got to go see the film, bring them with you, go see this film.
Mm,
You will not be sorry. It's so good. And just tell everyone, because this is something that needs to happen. The church can fix this.
yes.
There's
I mean,
100,000 kids in the foster care system, they said, and we can take care of that. We could do that in a month. We could fix that.
I know. I mean, 400,000 churches in America and 100,000 kids waiting for adoption. I mean, my goal and our goal is to see that just cleared out. Like, there shouldn't be any children waiting for a family in America. The government even helps pay families to help care for the kids so that we have no excuse. I mean, it's really just us being obedient to what God's calling the church to do. And it's true, I think when the church does this, another thing that drew me to the story is, when the church does what God calls us to do, it is beautiful and it is radical. And people look on and go, who are those people? Because I wouldn't do that personally, but something's different about those people. And Oprah started calling them the Today Show. I mean, the national attention when the church rose up and cleared out the foster system in their area, they became a light to the whole world. And just think, if the church across America were to clear out the foster system, I mean, the world would take notice. Like, these
Mm-hmm.
people are serious. Like, what they must really believe what they say, and something's different about this group. And I think that that's going to happen. I mean, our prayer is that that does happen and that this does inspire a movement, and especially among the churches. I mean, it is testing well with unbelievers too that do not have faith. So we don't like to really refer to it as a Christian film, because for us, like, we're Christians, we made the film, but I mean, it's appealing to a broader audience. And, our crew on set said that to us because, we had a union crew, and a lot of them, didn't necessarily identify as having any faith. But they were really drawn to the story. And they were like, Rebekah, you're going to be surprised who comes to this movie. Like, it's not going to be your typical faith-based film. And that, that is what we feel called to make. We feel called to make films for a broader audience. So we've been thrilled to see reactions in early screenings of people coming out of theaters weeping, who don't know Jesus, saying, if church was like that, I'd go to church.
Yeah. And I'll say, I think it is I think it is, at the end of the day, talking to Christians, because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to inspire the church. You're talking to the church. Church, we need to take care of this. There's a problem here. We could easily fix this. And then for the non-Christians, the way you communicated it wasn't in a preachy way. You just showed what love looks like.
Mhm.
This is what real Christ-centered love looks like and how hard it is. You
Mhm.
know, what we don't show in our Christian films is how hard loving like Christ is. We
Right.
don't show how hard it is to love our wives as Christ loved the church, or how hard
Mhm.
it is for wives to respect their husbands, or how hard it is to love a child who is pushing you away because they're so hurt, and hurting
Yeah.
people hurt people.
Mhm.
And but this film does. It shows what love looks like, and that's why I think the non-Christians are going to be completely engaged in it, because wow, this is a different kind of love. We don't see this in our Christian films, and the church is going to be energized and engaged because of it. So, oh man, wow, what a great movie.
Thank
I'm
you.
still riding high from seeing it, just like I just was just in love with it.
Oh.
Okay,
Did you watch it with your wife or by
I did.
yourself?
I did. I
Yeah.
watched it with my
You enjoyed
wife,
it?
and we were
Mm.
just enthralled the whole time, just so engaged. And so I wanted, if you don't mind talking about 8 years. You said some of the people, Christian community, weren't interested in the story. You know, it's always everybody's got their things they're working on and their stuff they've got in the can in the pipeline, and finding a place to fit can be difficult, can be challenging. But you got this movie made. Do you mind telling me what your budget was? Because it looks pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, it was over 10 million. It was like an $11 million budget. So, but it was union and we had a lot of characters and it was a period piece and we had kids and animals and so that just gets expensive, period, when you're doing a film with all of those elements. But it was, you know, it was a lot. So I don't know, I'd love to talk with the Kendrick brothers about doing non-union in the future because it's working with the unions was definitely a challenge,
Yeah,
major challenge.
and expensive, sure,
Yes,
and
drove
expensive.
the cost up a lot.
Oh yeah. How was Angel? And again, as I said, this is the best Angel film they've ever put out. I mean, there's never been an Angel
Oh,
film this good.
really?
Was Angel? That's a lot of money to have to raise. That's a lot of money
Yeah,
to raise. Um, was that a problem raising that? Was Angel a big part of that? How did you have investors?
yeah. Yeah, and just for clarity, I mean, there was interest in the story by the faith-based film distributors and companies, but not with the grit and the hard stuff. And so, they wanted to have a bow at the end and, take away a lot of the difficult things, the trauma, even the scene with the pastor Mark with the mega church, which my husband, the director, played Pastor
Right.
Mark.
Yeah, he acted in
One of
it
my
as well.
favorite scenes. So we were told like you are going to alienate your audience, like you have to take that out and I think that true like art shapes culture and it challenges people and it isn't just what we want to hear, right? And people are walking out being really challenged. And that was the goal. Like more than selling tickets, more than anything else, the goal was how do we move people to action to care for kids? And what are the barriers standing in the way of that? And then trusting God with the results of that, which that isn't usually how it's done in the film industry and it is risky, so I do understand that. But um, we ended up partnering with a nonprofit on this. So Care Portal is a nonprofit. I was working with them in Los Angeles. They're amazing. The CEO read the script and he wept and he said, I think this movie is going to ignite the movement to end the foster crisis in America. And I'm going to put everything I have behind it. And he went to all his donors that support his organization. It's a national organization and convinced them to fund this film. And he said, I'm gonna find donors that aren't gonna want credit. They're not gonna want their name on this film. They're gonna want to be anonymous and they just want this film to help kids. And that's a dream, for a filmmaker.
Yeah.
We've been at this for a long time trying to find the right financing because the right financing shapes your project. And, because of that, he looked Josh and I in the eye and he said, I want you to make the film the Holy Spirit's calling you to make. He's like, I don't want you to compromise. I want you to go and I trust you. And he did. And, it was a hard production. I mean, the unions were very, very hard on us. They're still being hard on us. I mean, our, our line producer said, I've made 50 films. I've never seen the unions treat a film the way that they're treating us. So, I mean, it was an intense production. It was a battle throughout, and he stuck by our side and just was in the trenches with us. And I think that's why we have a film that has, if you're feeling something, it's because we were given that freedom to create the way that we knew that we needed to. And Josh, my husband, I mean, his prayer for decades has been that God would move through his films and move hearts and change lives. And we just think the power of film is so powerful. And I think we're all just tapping into that of like, what would happen if artists truly were submitted to the Holy Spirit in a way that allowed him to move through the arts to change lives and hearts through stories. And, that's our prayers. We will see more and more of that, and that people will be so moved in theaters that we will see a movement happen in this country and lives changed and kids, foster system cleared out as a result.
Yeah, amazing. So yeah, I can see the struggle with the unions. This isn't necessarily their creed, you know. It's some of this is against some of the stuff they believe in even. So, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So,
No.
but I see God's hand on this. Through it all, God has so skillfully guided your hands through this, and I mean, I'm just for Joshua's first feature length film, this is a stunning directorial debut. I mean, it's so well directed. Working with kids and actors can be challenging,
Yeah.
and the acting in this from top to bottom is amazing. It's amazing. It's so good. The kids
Weren't they great? They did
are
such a good
amazing.
job.
And usually, as I said before, kids tend to overact a little bit. So, what was Joshua's experience in working with the actors? What was that like for him and for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of our biggest concerns. I mean, so much of the story rode on the acting performances of children, and we knew like that's a really hard thing to pull off, and especially the character of Terry, finding a character that, you were convinced she had been through all this trauma, but also you wanted to root for her, and that was really hard. We found a lot of kids that either seemed really traumatized, but you didn't really like them, or a lot of Disney kids that, were just, you didn't believe that they had been through anything. And he was really struggling. I mean, we had casting directors in Hollywood going to every single child talent agent and I mean, he had looked through so many reels and was like, I don't believe any, like, and then we expanded our search to the UK, and that's where we found Diana Babnikova. And she, we just right away, he's like, I think she has what we need. And she blew us away. But all the kids, I mean, they did an amazing job. I mean, Josh is actually an actor as well. He's studied acting, he's trained as an actor so that he could be a better director and understand the process of an actor. So I think that helps. And then, he also has 5 kids and he's really good with kids. So I think all of that combined, I mean, we just had talented actors and they blew us away. So we're really pleased.
Yeah, what a great feat. And then, as far as cinematography, where was this filmed? Was this filmed in Georgia?
Yeah, it was filmed in Georgia.
Okay, so you got they have great tax credits in Georgia. So the cinematography was fantastic. Let's talk about that a little bit. Just the look
Yeah.
of the film.
Yeah, it was, I mean, we actually had halfway through the film, our DP was having some family issues and ended up we had to replace and find a new DP. So that was a little bit challenging. But both DPs did a fantastic job. I mean, Benji Bakshi was the first DP that we had, and he did a really great job with his crew,
That's director of
and
photography for.
yeah, and then Sean Patrick Kirby came in and finished us out and came back for the reshoots. But yeah, we're really pleased with every every aspect was, was challenging in a lot of ways. I mean, some of it, our first feature too, we were learning and, doing a union film for our first film was challenging too. And, but, we'll take everything we learned and from here and adjust for our next project and go from there.
So you co-wrote it with Joshua. You and Joshua wrote it together, and you and Joshua produced it together. So talk about working with your husband. I mean, you've got all these kids. You're dealing with that. So you're full time taking care of kids. You're working together. How you're spending a lot of time together. How was
Yeah.
that? How did that work? Just working together on the film.
I mean, we work really well together. So we've been married for 28 years and we really complement each other's giftings. I mean, he's the artist and he's the visionary and so detail oriented and such a good director. And, I think I'm good with the characters and, kind of the heart, beat of the story. A lot of times I help guide that of, making sure it's my background's in psychology and so, but yeah, I mean, it was tough on our family. I think our kids are a little older now, so they're all teenagers and a couple are out of the house. So, we're not in the stage where we have little kids, so that wasn't a problem. But we did leave our kids for a number of months while we were in Georgia because they were in school. So I don't think we'll do that again. We want to always bring them with us in the future. But, first project we had, you know, and we played so many roles, we didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, so many hats. Feel like you have 12 heads because you have to wear
Yeah.
so many hats. I know about that a little bit. So we're looking at the film being in theaters July 4th, Sound of Hope. It comes out 1 year to the day from Sound of Freedom. Was this originally called Possum Trot?
Yes, that was the original name, and
And
Angel really liked, yeah.
Angel wanted you it was that obviously to connect it with Sound of Freedom. And how are you feeling about that? Are you excited about that opportunity?
I think that's a really smart marketing move. That Sound of Freedom showed us there was a problem. Sound of Hope shows the solution. Following it up, there's obviously, I think God's heart right now is fight for the kids, showing us, kids are, something that we all need to be focusing on and caring for, and especially vulnerable kids. And it was interesting when we went to see Sound of Freedom in theaters on opening day. We had just finished pickups in Georgia. We were in South Carolina, and there was a full theater. And at the end of the screening, there was a woman who just stood up and just started talking about how we could help kids right here in America by fostering and adopting kids and keeping them from going into the foster system because they're trafficked out of the foster system. And I was sitting there in the theater thinking, wow, this is so interesting because we hadn't signed with Angel Studios yet. But the feeling in the room was clear that like people were really moved, but they wanted something else to do. Like, how do we help this problem? Like, how do we help kids from being trafficked? And so I think it was really smart that Angel, has really taken that. And I think the Lord has guided them in that of, people are realizing children under assault and we need to protect kids. And this is a practical way of doing that. And so, and you had asked earlier about Angel Studios. I mean, we are really grateful to have distribution through Angel Studios. And, Sound of Hope, as they said, is their highest, the guild loved Sound of Hope. And, our test with the testing with the guild, it did really, really well. And, we're really grateful too that when we came to them, we said, we see this as more than a film. Like, we really see an impact campaign with this film. We want to see a movement started. We want to guide people not just to sell tickets, but we want to guide people to get involved. We want to have a website where we help guide people to get involved. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. They're just very entrepreneurial. They're out of the box thinkers. They don't think like everyone else in the business. And honestly, that was one of the main reasons we really focused on distribution with Angel, was because of that. And, so they're doing that. They're helping us to help, ignite this movement, which is really great.
The film Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, in theaters starting July 4th, a theater near you. Where can they go to find tickets and also to maybe get more information on this movement we're talking about?
Yeah, angel.com/hope. You can buy tickets. For small independent films like this, opening weekend is really important. So bring your churches, bring your family, your friends, come out on opening weekend, and you will be guided to the impact site if you pay it forward or, click the QR code, but it's possumtrotimpact.com is the website that we're developing that's going to be launched soon. It is live right now, so you can go to it, but yeah, and get your churches involved. We really want to see people rise up and care for kids, and there's a number of ways to do that. You don't have to foster and adopt. You can wrap around and support families in your church or community that are fostering and adopting. And there's a lot of different ways to get involved. Care Portal is another great platform that you can meet the needs of families in crisis right in your local community and keep kids from going into the system. But we really want to see the church be the light that we're called to be and turn this around.
Amen. Angel.com. I'm sure if you go there right on the front page, it's going to take you right to this film. I mean, that's going to be their main thing, but /hope to get to more info. Rebekah, what an honor. It's just been an honor. Thank you so much for being on the show and talking about this amazing movie. I pray that this film is seen by millions of Americans, and that the church can unite through this and do something about these 100,000 kids that don't have a home. This is amazing. And I will confess to you, when the movie was over, my wife and I were getting to bed, and I looked at her, I said, honey, if you want to go foster care a kid, I'll do it. I'm ready. So, I told her that.
Really?
So I'm confessing that.
Well, that's been our prayer. I mean, and specifically around fathers, because when I did a lot of foster care recruitment, one thing that I noticed was that the women's hearts always would go first, and so many women were like, I want to, but I'm trying to convince my husband. I had a list of recruits of families that the wife wanted to, but the husband wasn't there yet. And so I think it's pretty normal, even in the story, First Lady Donna got the vision and it took her a while to convince her husband. And in our family, the same thing. Like, my husband wanted to, but it was always like, he's more practical in a lot of respects of like, waiting until the right time. And I helped convince him, like, we're going to do it now. And so, over this film, one of our prayers that we've literally prayed is that it would turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. And so that's a testimony of just an answer to prayer that you felt that when you finished watching it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Rebekah. What an honor. What a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your encouragement about the film too. We're in the final stretch and we're tired, and it's encouraging to hear that. So thank you.
God. Thanks for listening today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and like us. Hey, would you tell a friend about the show? That would really help us out. You can find out more by going to faithfilmfan.com. That's faithfilmfan.com. I'm your host, Rick Altizier. We'll be back soon for another episode of the Faith Film Fan Podcast.